Well, good morning, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time speaking with you guys. When Ricky asked me to speak, really my first reaction was, well, what of value have I said to you that you think the church would benefit from? And because I really didn't think there was going to be much. So he regurgitated back some of the things I had shared, and as I looked through them, I kind of saw a theme that I was able to then pull into kind of a little bit of a conversation here. And it kind of went back to something that I had read in Ephesians 2:11. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. For God prepared beforehand these works that we should walk in them. And really, to me, this particular verse ties in with Acts 3. And Acts 3 is where Peter and John are going up to the temple, and they're walking through the gate beautiful, and there's a man there that's lame. And he's been lame for years and years. And one of the things that dawned on me when I read through Acts 3 was, this man sat at the gate beautiful, lame, and watched Jesus Christ walk through that gate. And Christ left him there. Now, Christ wasn't punishing him. Christ wasn't saying, you're not worthy of healing. But he left him there because he knew he had set a good work for Peter and John. And that good work for Peter and John was going to be to heal this man, share that healing, and then bring thousands of people to belief in Christ. So Christ left that work for them. And had they left that work, the man would not be healed, and those people would have never come to faith. So as I look through my life, I know that God has laid up good works for me. And he's been preparing me through my entire life for these works. I may not realize it at the time. I may not understand it at the time. And to be honest, some of the time as he's doing his preparation, I've been very arrogant in thinking I've been doing it. I was raised in a Lutheran home. We went to church every week. I learned many things and started a relationship with Christ when I was a teenager. But what God was doing during that time was he was giving me a good foundation of understanding what his word was, why I needed to be in it, and how to live in a way that would be pleasing to him. And then I went to college and I forgot all of that. But during that time, as I drifted, he stayed in place and he continued pouring into my life. One of my first major jobs was working in the Walt Disney World College program. At the time that I did it, about 10% of the people that applied got it. I was a geek. I was introverted. I was socially awkward. There was no way that I should have been able to walk into what was a group interview with 6 other individuals and 1 interviewer and be able to hold my own against these people who were far more outgoing than I was and then get the job. But I got the job. And I was so proud of myself because I had done wonderful things. And then they put me in the Magic Kingdom parking where I learned a lot about how to move large numbers of vehicles in and out. I learned great things about how to keep your customer experience and your efficiency of operation together rather than letting them collide with each other. And I continued working in theme parks. I worked for the Smithsonian doing a large traveling exhibit, and I learned a lot about large environments. Well, after that, I then wound up working for IBM and learned more about operations and about back-end systems. And during this time, I also found out that I wanted to be married, and I found a woman, and we started sleeping together, and we lived together, and we got married. And about 2 years into the marriage, we had our daughter. Our daughter Katie was born with something called Antley-Bixler syndrome. There's fewer than 50 people in the world that have it. And I gave her half, and her mother gave her half. But her mother and I hadn't followed God's plan. I married her out of guilt for what I knew I had done wrong before the marriage. With her birth, it drove me back to God. It drove me into a Bible-believing church where people came alongside me and helped me remember all those things that I'd learned as a child. They also started moving me in a direction so that my relationship with God was being restored. Unfortunately, my wife at the time was not moving. And as I moved towards God, I was moving further and further away from materialism, lying, and the things that she was still basing her life on. So she left. I was crushed. I had failed. Christians don't become divorced people. Failures become divorced people. But the people in that church stayed there, right next to me, walked me through it, taught me what truly godly dating looked like. I was able to meet Jocelyn, who I'm married to now. We have 4 wonderful children. We have a great life where we work together. I mean, to the point that when we had to replan our European vacation a couple weeks ago in 4 hours, and I tell people that story, their initial reaction is, there must have been a lot of yelling. And I go, no, there was no yelling. We came together and we did it. So through that, there's this example. Well, we wound up moving out to Phoenix, Arizona, and then we moved to Charlotte, and we found this little church called Elevation. They had 4 campuses at the time and were worshiping 40,000 people a week. We went to the broadcast location, and I started joining and volunteering with the parking team. Seemed like a natural fit given this whole Disney thing. About a year later, they asked me to start running the parking team. And I ran the parking team both at Blakeney, which was the original broadcast, and then Ballantyne, which was the secondary broadcast location, for about 6 years. And while I ran the parking team, I had about 50 to 60 volunteers that served in the areas that I oversaw. One of these guys was named Nick. Nick had decided to live with a woman, have a child, and she left him. And he was devastated. And I was able to come alongside Nick. And I was able to share with him what I had done and what God had taken me through and where I was. And as more and more people came around Nick, he slowly pulled himself out of the depression he was in. He found a woman at church. They got married, and they now have a family of their own. And in hindsight, I'm looking at all of the things that I thought I had done, like that awesome interview at Disney, and realize that God was putting the words in my mouth. God was giving me the experiences because he had laid good works ahead of me to help Nick and to help other people. And the blessings I've received from being able to follow his direction and take the things that he's poured into me and then make sure that I'm on the lookout to pour those things out into other people has been phenomenal. So.